2006 was a life-changing year for me. I was tired of Baltimore and decided I was moving to the city of black success, Atlanta. I remember that year vividly. I was 25, which is that year where you really start to feel like you're an actual adult. I was broke, but yet somehow always in the club and always in the streets. And I really got a chance to see just how powerful Atlanta's music scene was firsthand. That music is part of why I remember this time in my life so clearly. And on this episode, I'm talking to one of the men responsible for producing the music that soundtracked that era in my life. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of the impact that he's had on the music industry and on black family reunions until the end of time. Thank you for joining another episode of Ungentrified. Of course, this is your boy, Kent Johnson, and I have a very dope person with me today. And I was like, yo, you definitely need to come on the show. And here he is. But before we get into who that is, one thing I ask everybody that comes on the show is what's on their radar at the moment. So it could be like, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite TV show? What's your favorite jam of the moment? What book are you reading? What new hobby have you gotten into? What's on your radar right now?
Okay, so let me go to the book that I'm reading right now.
All right.
And I don't get mad if I don't quote the name of the book.
Okay.
Exactly. But it's from the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series. And it's the tax edition of that.
Okay.
So, and it's funny because I shared that book on my social media. And I probably got the least amount of interaction and feedback on that versus the crap
Anything
that I
else
put
you
up. Pictures and, I was here or whatever. I get good response from that. But when I put this book up, because I really felt like, and I said this is for my friends. I actually quoted that for my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And because I really think that we miss that we could go online or turn on TV and see all our heroes get messed up by taxes
all of the time.
You know what I'm saying? And we like, dang, that's messed up and blah 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 blah. But then when I put something up like that, and you'd be surprised how many of your friends have tax problems that we just don't talk about it.
Right, it's very common.
Yeah. So when I posted this book, I was excited to post it, and nobody
responds. Because it's a thing, it's like when people go get an STD test. Nobody wants to talk about it unless you got a good result. Like we all know you should be getting it.
Right.
We all know that it's something that you should do.
Right.
But nobody wants to talk about
right.
that appointment.
That's bad. But you right to compare taxes to an STD. Damn.
I mean, it feels the same way.
Hey man. Yeah, when you ain't paid them.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, but that's something that kills, especially black artists.
Right.
Right. All of the time. And then there was something I was reading about, like how half of the housewives are dealing with some kind of tax issue right now, like the housewives of Atlanta.
Because when you work for yourself, it's cool. Like when you little and you working for McDonald's or Burger King and they take the taxes out of your check.
Right.
When somebody just gives you a check and says that's yours, and it's your responsibility to handle what comes with me giving you this check.
Right.
Nobody has taught us. It's hard for somebody to get a check for $1 million and pay the taxes on $1 million.
Right.
That's hard.
Or be worried about it. Some people so hyped to get the money.
Right.
They're not worried about what's going to happen later.
And so by the time they can't ignore it anymore, years have passed and it's too late. It's literally too late to worry now. You have to worry now.
Right.
But it's too late because the longer you go without paying it, of course, the interest and the penalties alone, probably more than what you owed to begin with.
Right.
And, I've seen it happen to a lot of people that I know and that I don't know. And so I just feel like, we sit here and watch somebody like Donald Trump because they've understood how to manipulate
right
or navigate. I won't even say manipulate. I'll say navigate.
Yeah, navigate, skirt,
right.
Do
there's
everything
ways to do it legally.
Yeah.
To minimize what you pay in taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to even be. I know my accountant when I first got it. I've had the same accountant all the way through. And he told me when I went into his office for the first time, I was excited to find out how I could get out of paying taxes. That was my whole, because I was young. And he stopped me. He literally stopped me in the middle of my conversation and said, "Pay your taxes."
Yeah.
Like as a young dude, and I never forget that. And it hurt. I ain't gonna lie. It hurts when you getting money that you never thought you'd be able to get.
Right.
But if you don't pay your taxes.
Right. And that's the thing too, is like it always happens to, well, not gonna say always, but a lot of times it happens to people, like I said, who had no concept of that amount of money to begin with. But if you came with that mindset in mind that, you know what, I ain't never seen this much money, so if they take their money now, still
do it. That's the easiest way to do it.
Right.
Just do it up top. You know what I mean? Or if there's ways, if you know you got to do it, just mentally just prepare for it at the top. Most people got their money spent before they get the check. That's the problem.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So they can't do it. But I learned early on to just know I'm going to pay taxes, some form of taxes, and know the gist of how much you're going to owe in tax or whatever. At the end of the day, when you can write all your stuff off and all that, and you got some money left over, that's actually a plus.
Right.
But don't go spending all your money in your head, knowing you got a check coming for X amount.
Right.
And it's gone before you even get your hands on it.
All right. And look, one of the things I learned from law school is that the IRS will help you out if you talk to them.
Right.
Tell them early that you might not have some payments on time. Let them know they will work with you.
Right.
Don't wait till the last minute.
Right.
But look, this episode isn't about taxes.
I haven't even told the people who I am.
Right.
I'm not an accountant.
Yeah. But the tax edition of Rich Dad Poor Dad is worth reading. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And I'm just getting into it, to be honest with you, because the book before that was The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, something like that. Because I'm not a big real estate guy, and for me, if something is not what I do, because I got a million people want to say, "Hey man, won't you come over here and do this with me?" Blah, blah, blah. And that's the worst feeling in the world, to put your money in something off somebody else's word.
Right.
And you didn't really know what the hell you was doing, and you lose.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That has happened to me before. So I try to read up on stuff before I, get involved with it. And so that was one thing I never really got the details of it. So the Millionaire Real Estate Investor, I think anybody, and come to find out, my real estate partners, once I told them that's the book that I chose to read, that's the book that they were told to read.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's another good one.
Okay. What's on my radar? I just finished reading the Michelle Obama book.
Oh, how's that?
It was good. I burned through it because I'm in a book club and we were supposed to have it done by a certain time. Then I was the only one that finished reading it.
Wow.
So, but no, it was a really good book. So I suggest everybody cop that, read it. And if you are one of the lucky ones that was able to get tickets today, I think, because she's coming back to Atlanta in May, and them tickets, people were going crazy yesterday.
She sold out already?
Yeah. Shout out to you. What's my jam right now? Well, we were just talking about it. So I randomly heard this remix from back in the day. Is Portraits Honey Dip. It was the remix of that. Shout out to DJ Artistic, who did like this 90s mix and played it at the end. And I had one of them, oh my God moments.
That's the best thing in the world as a DJ.
Yeah.
To have somebody have that feeling.
Yeah. So that's been on replay for me all week. Like it's 92 and I'm in the Jeep, so that's my jam of the moment.
Oh, I'm going to tell you my jam that I was on the phone with an old DJ friend of mine, and he told me about it. I was like, man, I never heard that. There's a remix of Throw the D, Luke, 2 Live Crew. Can we cuss?
Yes, you can cuss.
Throw the Dick. They're one of their very first songs.
Right.
There's a remix that came out that I never heard, and it's Trick Daddy, Ludacris, and Luke. Have you heard that?
No.
So while I'm on the phone with dude, I pull it up on YouTube because I couldn't find it nowhere. So of course YouTube, everybody got stuff on YouTube, and I found it, and it blew my mind. So I went on Facebook and asked all my DJ friends who has this record, and they sent it to me. So that Luke is the reason. Well, 2 Live Crew is the reason why I'm here. That group is a big part of the reason why I'm doing music.
And that song in particular, too.
Yeah,
right?
and that song in particular. Yes.
Yeah.
The original.
We're going to definitely get into that. So you guys are probably wondering who I've been talking to about taxes and dick throwing, right? for the last couple of minutes. Why don't you go ahead and tell the people who you are?
Mr. ColliPark.
Right.
Formerly known as DJ Smurf.
And now again known as DJ Smurf.
Well, I can't get away from the name. But for legal reasons, I can't refer to myself as that, and that's been a long time ago.
Okay.
But I've seen other DJ Smurfs out there since I stopped calling myself DJ Smurf. But the Smurf copyright got at me back, and it's funny. It was right when I was transitioning out of it anyway. I was like, as long as they don't try to take my little checks I got as DJ Smurf, I'm good. But they sent some cease and desist letters, and I was like, cool.
Yeah. Hey,
that was right when I put out Whistle While You Twerk for Ying Yang. Yep.
Yes, a moment in history that you were a part of, that you made happen. But that's not the only thing that you've been a part of or that you set the standard on. And that was why I brought you through. I wanted to, I'm all about giving people they props and they recognition and they flowers while they're here.
Thank you.
And I've always been a fan of. Well, I became familiar with you through your productions as ColliPark.
Okay.
Right. Then I started to spread and learn more.
Right.
Especially as I started to dig into like the history of Atlanta and the scene before I knew it as the scene. Like I was always familiar as a teenager with like LaFace and all that stuff that was going on here, but I was hearing it. I was living on the West Coast at the time.
Okay.
So the impact that it had in San Diego versus the impact that it had in Decatur is, it's 2 different experiences.
Yeah, I bet.
But I still have very fond memories of that. And you and I spoke earlier before we started recording about how 2006 was the year I moved to Atlanta. And that was when a lot of things were going on for you, for music down here.
I was in the middle of really rebranding. Well, not really creating, but just marketing the brand of ColliPark.
Right.
Because prior to that, I just wanted to produce, and I wasn't looking at it like bad boy or nothing like that. But once I saw a lot of the work that we were putting in was being credited, and no offense to Lil Jon, and Lil Jon comes from my school,
right.
And so Ying Yang was out there with John. And so it was like they weren't worried about the stuff that, like, because the role that we played in the sound of crunk, nobody really credits Ying Yang, which means myself.
Right.
For the role, Ying Yang was crunk music.
Right.
Even before it was called crunk music. So I saw that I was like, man, I can't. And it was more so for them than myself, to be honest with you, because they were frustrated about that. Sometimes people would think they were the East Side Boys because, at the time, even the label, we were all on TVT.
Right.
And had imprint deals with TVT, production deals with TVT.
Because TVT is no more.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they were all Lil Jon at the time until, I won't say Salt Shaker, which is kind of.
So that was well into it.
Well, we signed with TVT after Get Low.
Okay.
Right after we did Get Low. And then so the first album we did, me and my brother had Salt Shaker on it. And it was still like, okay, this is not a fluke, but it was still John. John was on that record. And so it was still John. So then we did the Whisper song. That was when I said, okay, this is ours.
Right.
And that's when I stepped off and started really branding ColliPark.
Yeah, because the Whisper song sounded like nothing.
Dead at crunk. it was we took all the juice out of crunk.
Right. Yeah.
No more crunk juice.
it completely changed the game as far as that sound.
I felt like we did it once, we could do it again, because really, see, so when John would do his albums, he was a DJ. So when he would do his albums, he would put his albums together like a mixtape. So he would do like a strip club record, a slow record,
Right.
a R&B record, a bass record. So we were the strip club record.
Mm-hmm.
So they did Get Low right after I. So if you listen to I with the horns and stuff that we use, Get Low had horns in it as well.
It was a transitional piece.
Right. So that was just John doing what he always did. But because I'm there, I know what's going on.
Right.
So, and I even heard Get Low before John put his stuff on it. And that whole record, Ying Yang really just did that record.
And let's talk about Get Low. So a lot of people don't know this, but you were the first person to put To the Window, to the Wall on a record.
Right, because people came and tried to sue John. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. People came out the woodwork talking about this came from me and blah, blah, blah. I actually had filed for the copyright that I had even forgot about it. One of the only records I had that did just messing around, you know, because Ying Yang actually put the lyrics on the beat before John got on it.
Ah,
so
okay.
To the Window, that was already on there.
That was already, oh, okay.
Then John just came in and filled it in. So, yeah.
Yeah, because that was quite a while before Get Low, too.
That was, you talking about the one I did?
Yeah.
I was in college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Alabama State, right?
Alabama A&M.
A&M.
So that was us. But you see, the role that we play, if you take Get Low out of crunk music, I don't know if there is a crunk music. That record right there put it all on the map.
It really did. If you had to explain to a 15-year-old what crunk music was, you have to play that song as an example.
That to crunk was what Whistle While You Twerk was to twerk, because before that it was bounce.
Right.
And when we did Whistle While You Twerk, that gave a sound to twerk. There was no such thing as twerk music before Whistle While You Twerk. Right,
because if you think of the beat to Whistle While You Twerk, it sounded different than bounce music at the time.
Right, because it was bred. It was a mixture of bass music and bounce influence.
Right, and that's another thing that you brought into like black music and black vocabulary was the word twerk.
Right,
like that's your record. That's
right.
You and
I can't take credit for the word, but I can take credit for the sound. Yeah, because like again, it was influenced by Louisiana and New Orleans. But they use twerk for different reasons. We specifically use twerk for dance.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's what the different thing. And believe it or not, that's what we've always had a connection with Louisiana, starting with the first record we did with Ying Yang. And now the Stand Up and Get Crunk record that we have that they play every time they score is New Orleans' top song. You know what I'm saying? So we've always had a love. I won't call it love-hate, but because of the sports,
right?
Only but we've always had a connection with New Orleans.
Well, when we met at the Super Bowl live announcement, and we were talking about that, and I said, well, at the center of hate is a little bit of love,
right?
Because you gotta have some kind of love to be connected enough to put the energy into hating something.
Right.
So it's a little bit of love there,
right?
But yeah, and it always trips me out when you hear people say that, twerk started in the last 10 years. And it's like, no.
Nah.
I was like, Whistle While You Twerk was what, 2000?
We actually did it in 1999.
Okay.
It popped in 2000.
It popped in 2000. Yeah. So, hey, and when we think of, we go back to like the example of putting crunk music in front of a 15-year-old, like you said, because you were behind the scenes on a lot of the stuff, people would automatically assume that it was Little John.
Right.
And that wasn't the case.
And John did his thing. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I'm not trying to take, John is my man. Got a lot of love for Little John. But at the same time, it is what it is.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I know what was going on, even from the stage performance aspect of it. Like I brought Ying Yang up through the ranks. Like, they were walking around the club with their shirts off before they even had a record out. when I would take them on the road. Like
Right.
they were like they personified what that shit was. They didn't need this ain't no shot or nothing. They didn't need a cup or a gas can.
Right.
You know, they didn't need that.
Because they were hype on their own.
They used to scare people. And they still do.
Right. Oh, and people don't notice it. They're not actually twins. They're not brothers.
No.
Because people say that all the time. I'm like, no, they're not brothers.
They're equally crazy.
Right. Yeah, they're twins in energy, but not in nature. They're not twins. But yeah, you were very instrumental in that era of music, and that really was something that it didn't bring Atlanta back on the music map, but it kind of solidified Atlanta as something more than just Outkast or LaFace.
Right.
It expanded the idea of what kind of music was coming out of Atlanta. But let's take it a couple of years down the line. So we're into the crunk era, and we're moving on to like 2006, 2007. And this is when I come down to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And I remember distinctly your records. Of course, we have the Whisper song, we had Wait, we had Play, and Miss New Booty at the time. That was what you referred to as intimate club music, right?
Right. You did your homework.
Right. I did. I mean, like I said, I can pull out my computer right now. I got your records on deck, like Warm Bed, the Jamie Foxx track. That used to be my shit back in the day.
That should have been his second single on that album.
Yeah, I remember them positioning it as that.
Yeah, they put that, what was that song?
Love song, yeah.
I want to say
with Twister, yeah.
Right. And yeah, well, that should have been Warm Bed should have been.
But all of you had a very distinct signature sound around that time. And again, it sounded like nothing else that was being played, but it dominated. Like I remember when the DJ, it was like the ColliPark set where you had Whisper, then you had Play, then they would wrap it up with Miss New Booty or something like that.
It was like rap R&B almost.
Yeah.
Because it was sexy. You know what I mean? It was grown. You know what I'm saying? So I think for me, I was maturing just from a professional aspect. Mm-hmm. And I think it all just went hand in hand, man. You know, I grew up from Sharon Showcase, and that's a club that was here on the east side. Mm-hmm. But I just grew up in the music that I was doing at the time. It just all meshed together. So it was perfect. So
do you remember of the intimate club music era, what was the first record you created? Not the first one that came out, because sometimes it's not the same. So Wait was the first one.
Very first. It was. It came out by accident. Somebody leaked it.
Oh,
yeah. It was an incomplete thought.
Oh, so that song was to you is unfinished.
No, but yeah, because it was so empty, and because what we were doing on it, and the way it came about, it was like, okay, maybe one more thing on it. It wasn't even heavy on my mind or anything like that, because we never had pressure making music, me and Ying Yang. We just went in the studio and did it. Mm-hmm. So we did that record while we were waiting on Roy Jones at the studio, and they were getting antsy. And so we just did that record, and we just did it. So we didn't even have time to like go back and tweak it or any of that. A dude that was down with me leaked it in his hometown, and they cleaned it up and started playing the shit on started playing it on the radio.
Oh, you can cuss?
Yeah, I forgot. But they started playing it on the radio, and the rest is history.
Wow. So wait, what town was that? Do you remember?
Columbus, Georgia.
So Columbus. So your first intimate club music record popped off in Columbus, which is not very intimate club.
Right.
Sorry, Columbus.
Right.
Wow, that's crazy. So when did you hear it on the radio for the first time?
I can't even remember, man. But I just remember as people would hear that record for the first time, my phone started. TBT didn't know what the hell was going on. And the record was so big in the streets. That record could have been like the biggest record we ever did, but it researched poorly at radio. And I don't know if you know about that. It was like super duper heavy rotation, but when the research came back on it, it was bad, and stations just started pulling it. Regardless of how people were loving it and all that, when the research comes back bad, they just start pulling it.
So what was the research indicating? Well,
they couldn't identify with the hook.
Oh.
So That's what I remember.
But
And
it's like if people love it, it doesn't need a hook.
a lot of stuff in the industry and radio never makes sense. So that's one of them you just got to charge it to the game.
Right.
But thank God we were never. So for me, whenever we came up with a hot record, I always know we need a second, possibly a third single.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Ying Yang's catalog, we never waited for the song to die out, then worry about, what we coming with next.
Right.
So we would always have records. And on that album, we had the Mike Jones record, Bad, I'm Looking for a Dime.
Mm-hmm.
That's top. And then we had the Pitbull, Shake, 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 Shake.
Yeah.
So we had records on there to follow it up with. So it didn't kill us. You know what I mean? That album went platinum, by the way.
Which rarely happens in this day and age.
Right, which was our second platinum album, because the one with
First
Salt
one.
Shaker went platinum as well.
Yeah, that's crazy that radio is really telling people, oh no, this is what y'all need to hear, not what you actually want to hear.
Because you can't tell me when I'm out here standing next to somebody when this record comes on, it's the greatest shit in the world.
Right.
And when your research comes back, it's not researching well.
Right. And then, well, Atlanta has the benefit of having multiple places where records can pop. You have radio, you have the strip club. So they kind of, really the strip club kind of dictates.
And we don't get our credit for what we did with that either. And I'm not going to say that we the first people who made records for the strip club, but I think that we were the first people to effectively target the strip club.
Right.
You know, for music and promotion of music, because our records, we were literally calling out strip clubs in the songs.
Right.
So again, I won't take credit for being the first people to do it, but I will take credit for putting it on the map.
And if you think about it, strip club now is very different music wise than strip club was in 2006.
That's why I stopped going.
Yeah, because it was still very much sexy music, and it made sense to want to see a woman dancing to that versus, you know, her busting it open to mask off right now. Like it doesn't it doesn't have the same effect.
Right. Then they don't even want you in there no more either.
Right.
They don't want you. They want the girl dancing next to them. So the fantasy of it is gone.
Yeah, it's a whole different space. But and I try to tell people that, like, you know, I love Atlanta to death. I'm glad I'm here. It's probably home forever, but I came at the right time.
Right.
For me. If I had a choice, I would have been down here doing Freaknik. But when I got to college, that was the last year of Freaknik. But being down here as a midway adult in 2006 was a great time, because there was just so much music coming out of Atlanta. But let's go a couple of years past that. So we are still in the era of MySpace and things like that, and you were yet again a pioneer and really kind of set the standard for how artists are found and cultivated today. Soulja Boy.
Right.
Soulja Boy was, you know, building a following with his music on MySpace. It was MySpace at the time. I'm trying to remember how. And his hype was slowly building up, especially around kids that were his age at the time.
Right.
And you reached out to him and brought Soulja Boy to the masses. And at the time, that was something that just didn't happen.
Right.
I'm trying to think of another person. I think Cassie with Ryan Leslie was another person who was kind of pulled from the internet. But it wasn't. Soulja Boy was a case where he already had a hit record.
Right. His fan base he had a fan base
right
on the internet. And I remember I was over at Interscope. I had my a label deal over at Interscope, and I had been over there for like a year and a half with nothing. I had put up no points, and it was almost like I felt like, because Polo was over there with the Zone 6, I think that was his label.
Yep.
And I felt like I was the first person to get a deal with Interscope that really represent the underground Atlanta, like the dirty, like. Interscope would never do a deal with somebody like me, but I had brought that sound to the forefront.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the sound that people turn their noses up at when they first hear it. Then when it pops, then everybody, oh, I love it. You know, You didn't love Ying Yang the first time you heard it.
Right.
You loved it when you saw what it was doing in Magic City. Then you got, oh shit. Oh, I love them. Like, so Soulja was another example of what was truly going on, but what was different. We didn't even know, as adults, we didn't even know what was going on. The kids knew what was going on.
Right.
So because after I ran across him, I started literally asking kids in real life about this kid who I had never heard about before. And every last one of them knew him. I'd be at a random restaurant and I see a little teenager. I ask them. They knew about him and A-Rab. They knew about them both.
Right.
And they actually like A-Rab a little more, to be honest. Because he was the little light-skinned dude. You know what I mean? But so they knew about him. So I knew off the rip that this was real. I had never seen anything like this before in my life. Right. Because it's one thing for somebody to turn you on to something. Because it didn't click with me till the second person brought him to my attention. Two people brought Soulja Boy to my attention. Just on some, you might want to look at this type. Wasn't no big, you know what I mean? So the second dude brought it to my attention. That's when I was like, okay, because the second dude had nothing to do with the first dude. So it's two people, two different
separate people,
walks of life.
Right.
So when the second dude did, I said, hold on, let me look into this. So when I started looking, that's when I started asking people in real life. And that's what made it make sense to me. So I was over, to bring it back to Interscope, they weren't really paying no attention to me. I was just so hot as a producer. That's why they did the deal, because I was hot. They had everybody. They had me, Timbaland, Pharrell, Swiss Beats was over there, I want to say. Polo was over there. They had all of us.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Will I Am. Everybody was at Interscope. Jimmy cut the check.
Right.
So, but it was just like I was over there just because they wanted to have everybody who was doing anything as a producer. Jimmy just wanted everybody over there. But that ain't how I get down. If you really look at the labels I just mentioned, what many artists that came from those labels that truly popped.
Right.
Now, Jimmy, the way he worked, he would put artists on you. Like they tried to put Slim Thug on Pharrell, which was a disaster.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So they didn't even think enough to even try to give me an artist to work with. So when I found Soulja, I was like, if they don't get this, then I don't belong over here. That was my mentality. But Interscope was always my dream label because they had all the wall artists, the artists that you would put up on, your kids would put up on the wall. They had the 50 Cents. They had the Dr. Dre's, the Eminems, even the Black Eyed Peas, No Doubt.
Yeah, if you think about it, the albums that came out from Interscope, especially around that era, that's when you saw like it was a track from you, a track from Tim, all on the same album. So you had like these power players on. I'm thinking of the Jamie Foxx record. It was you. Tim was on there too.
Right.
I think Tank did a couple tracks on that.
Tank, because me and Tank did the remix.
Yeah. So it was a lot of talent pouring into Interscope at the time.
So, I mean, you know, I was as a producer, well, as a label, because I had to switch my mind from production to label. Which is why I fell back on producing, because I really wanted to take this serious. I just felt like the opportunity as a label, it was real. And so when I got Soulja, I literally called a meeting with the whole company. And everybody was in there. And I put Soulja's MySpace stuff and walked the company through the MySpace.
So they could actually see.
Say, don't take my word for it.
Right.
Look at this shit. Because I knew they didn't understand the music.
Right.
I knew they didn't. Hell, I barely was getting the music. You know what I'm saying? And within, I want to say a week or 2 weeks, it was either a week or two of us putting Crank That up on iTunes. The shit shot to #1. Like that. And that's all they needed to see.
Right. That's all. That is all. The research came back on that one quick.
Yeah, it came back quick. He was the first artist to sell over 3 million on iTunes. Well, the first one to do it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Which was, when we think about it at the time, this is when the first iPhone is coming out. Like iTunes is still very early on in the game.
We were still selling ringtones.
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah. Because he was known
The
as
ringtones and the single sales were almost identical. I remember getting the numbers every week.
right.
And we were selling a shitload of ringtones.
Yeah, because Soulja Boy was known as the ringtone rapper.
Right.
Like he was the one that made that a thing
Yep.
at the time. Oh man, that takes me back.
Yep. So we had that, and then again, if you go back and I don't know if you were a fan or remember that era. If you go back and listen to Soulja Boy's first album, it is a classic piece of work.
Mhm.
Like for real, over half of that album is memorable. The songs on that album.
Because y'all just went back and re-recorded, like redid the stuff that he.
What I had him do. Now I got to pat myself on the back of this because I didn't want to come in and touch him. Anybody else in my position would have produced it.
Right.
10 out of 10 guys would have produced that kid. He was only 16 at the time. And when I remember the song that really got me, made me think he was a genius was the Ya Trick. But it was Ya Bitch.
Yeah.
But when I found him, that was the funniest. Like I played that record 1,000,000 times. I was like, how the fuck did he come up with this shit? Ya Bitch, ya. Yo, Soulja Boy, ya Bitch, ya. I was like, this was pure genius to me.
And I remember there was a video of him like at his home showing like how he did it, how he came up with. I think it was that track.
So most people couldn't get past the fact that it just sounded terrible,
Right.
like technically. So I say, okay, I'm gonna just have this kid go and re-record this shit, and I'm gonna mix it. And as he re-recorded the songs, and another thing, I pat myself on the back. No dirty. Everything is clean. There is no dirty version of his first album. I can't remember. I think we did it on both albums. I can't remember if we did on second. I know definitely the first one. No dirty versions because I saw what this was finna be.
Right.
And so we put him out there clean cut, which obviously now that's not who he was.
Right.
So I pat myself on the back again. When you look at the Soulja Boy that we took to the world, everybody loved this kid, man. And that album had so many songs on it that went platinum too.
Yeah.
And he had a few multi-platinum
singles, right? Yeah. And it's crazy to look at it now because it's the standard for how artists are put into our face now as far as the music industry. Studio execs and A&R people are not looking at artists unless they already have a following coming or like it's almost a part of the deal now because
and that's weird. You know what's weird to me about that now and the fact that the role that I played in that, I don't get what's going on now. And I say that just because there is no artistry element to 90% of the artists. It's like we go off social media, whatever you're doing on social media, whatever you're doing on social media, we'll put some music on your ass. you don't understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the most misconception of me because all my music was fun. I dealt with some artists, that for what they did, they were at the top of the game. Mm-hmm. When you look at Ying Yang, nobody could make strip club music better than them.
Right.
That's what they did. You might not like it, but for what they did, they were the very best at it. Mm-hmm. For what Soulja Boy was doing, he was an artist. That boy was touring when I found him.
Right. So he was already doing this.
He was out. Yeah. He just didn't know how to come off the internet, which is still his problem now. It's funny, right? It's still, you see what I'm saying? But he was a real artist when I found him. I just helped him maximize what he was working with. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And so these people that they coming with now ain't got nothing to do with music. And I don't get that.
Yeah. I've had people tell me, and it's not even just in the music industry. It could be model, actress. Yeah. Like it came down in the decision room to how many followers somebody had.
Yeah, that's all it is, man.
Whether, that determined whether or not they were going to get a deal.
And honestly, that's why I never got into the manipulation of my Instagram numbers. Like if you go on I just hit 6,000 followers. And whatever percentage of that is some bots or whatever that everybody got or whatever, I've had so many people come to me and they go on my Instagram. They say, damn, you only got 5,000 followers. Like they real though. Like
right.
Tomorrow I can have 100,000 followers like the rest of these cats got.
Mm-hmm.
But two things I'm not going to do. I'm not going to pay for followers and I'm not going to put myself out here on social media doing some shit that I can't stand behind or that's not authentic to who I am. I've been doing this shit too long.
Right.
I've been doing this shit for a very, very long time for me to, I ain't gonna say fall victim. The game is what it is. It evolves and is whatever. But this part of it, I'm too much of a private person. So if you don't like music, like only thing I put up on Instagram is clips of me in the studio working on music. I'm out somewhere with music. If that ain't your thing, then
you don't need to be there.
Yeah, you don't need to come on my Instagram.
All right. Speaking of music, I mean, we've been talking about music this whole time, but this is the last thing I'm gonna bring up about how you are a mainstay in Black culture and in Black music history. The Wobble.
Right. That gets lost in the show.
Yeah.
I even forget about it sometimes.
People don't know that this is another thing that came from your camp, is
right.
The Wobble. I actually know someone who worked on that song too. I worked with his mom. John Boy?
John Boy. Yeah. I was just with John Boy.
Yeah. I used to work with his mom at APS. So,
okay. That's all right.
Yeah. And we did like something and she randomly told me one day and I always remembered that in the back of my head.
John Boy gonna let you know he missed the Wobble now.
Yeah. And it's like, that you can't go to a Black function and not hear that song. That has to feel like incredible.
Honestly, because I had no personal connection with VIC. That was my brother signed him.
Oh, okay.
And I actually executive produced the album. I produced 2 songs off that. No, 3 or 4 songs off the album. The first, which was Get Silly.
Get Silly, right.
That was, and we said it was Soulja Boy at the time, but I actually did Get Silly. And because my name was affiliated with it, people wanted, because Soulja Boy was so hot.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, and people just like trying to throw deals at us. So I was like, my brother had an artist, so it was like, okay, because he was my brother, I was like, let me put a few songs on him. So the first song we went in and did was Get Silly, and so we got the album budget, whatever. They were in there doing all kind of shit, and my brother ran across some tracks on my hard drive. He would always get in my hard drive, and the Wobble at the time was nothing but the drums. That come on when it first comes on.
Yeah, okay.
That's all it was. The beat with no horns, no nothing. So my brother found that shit on my hard drive and went crazy. Yeah, true story. So the Wobble actually was a product of my camp at the time. Mm-hmm. I had a group of producers called the Package Store. John Boy was one of them. Right. Swole, Mr. Hanky, who did Smile Bitch. Mm-hmm. He was part of it, and Tom Slick. 4 talented guys. And so I wasn't even in the studio when they came up with the lyrics and stuff. So by the time I heard what they had done, it was just like a mixtape on one song, just a bunch of shit. If you listen to that record, it sounds like a party going on.
It does.
So all this shit going on. So I had to go in, and that probably was the record that I did was considered like the old school sense of production. Because I had to go in and put all that shit together and make it make sense.
Okay.
And so I did the beat, but all the shit that's going on it, they just was in there vibing. And then I came back on top of it. And what you got at the end
is what we had.
Was the Wobble. So yeah. And so for me and VIC never clicked personally. So I never felt the connection to him. Mm. So when people ask me, I don't even mention Get Silly neither. I don't mention nothing affiliated with Vic just because I didn't feel Now, when I do feel proud about that record is when I'm somewhere that nobody has a clue who's in the building. Like I was in Dominican Republic and they played that record and they went crazy over there. And I'm just sitting there at the pool like, wow.
Yeah, I was saying it has to be amazing to just be like and know that that's on every DJ's hard drive. That's going to be played at, a church function, a wedding, a family reunion, a graduation, a Halloween party. Like
beyond that, when I'm dead.
Right.
So that's what brings me pride when I look at my kids. This is like real estate for them.
Mm-hmm.
You will always have something. I don't think a lot of people look at music like that.
Yeah.
So when I look at my kids, I'm like, if I was to fall off a cliff tomorrow and didn't have nothing, my intellectual property, they'll always have that after I'm dead and gone. And I looked at Ike Dirty, with his dad's Isaac.
Oh yeah.
Hayes, he'll always
right.
Notwithstanding, he looked just like his dad
and kind of sound
right. So it's like, damn, he'll always have, and he'll be able to pass that
right on
down to his kids. So to me, that's when I get full, not so much as when I hear it on the radio.
Right.
But, so it's just different. And that record in particular, man, because again, I think as big as that song is, I think it could have been bigger.
Yeah. When I think back to like that era when Get Silly came out and his album came out, I don't remember that song having the impact that it did
let me tell
or that
you why.
It does now.
Let me tell you why. Now, to the credit of the staff at Warner Brothers, when we had the listening party for that album, the staff, now we loved Wobble, but up until that point, we had pushed VIC, who was not no kid,
right,
off as like a Soulja Boy dance type.
Right.
Like that was, all this was intentional now.
And I remember the Get Silly video because Soulja Boy was all up in the video, and I thought they were the same age.
Right.
Yeah.
So we did all that, right? But that's not, number one, that's not who he really was. And number two, that record was so good. It was just it was so produced. It just sounded and felt like something. So when we were in the listening party, the whole staff, number white people, predominantly white people, they said that one. Because we had some more shit on there that sounded like another Get Silly type. We could have easily went that way. They was like, no, this one. Now, after we picked Wobble, we actually shot a video and all that. I spent my own money promoting Get Silly. I said, and because of my brother, whatever. But I said, he got a deal, and this is because he had a single deal at first that turned into an album deal.
Okay.
So I was like, I wasn't taking no L's. So when we put out the Get Silly, I was like, this shit got to go.
Right.
Our name is on it. So I was like, you got a deal now. So to me, I was like, I'm not promoting this shit. And so when Wobble came out, they didn't know what to do because it didn't sound like nothing that was out. He was coming off Get Silly, which was some Soulja Boy shit. Here we go with Wobble, which was a great song, but it fit nowhere.
Right. I couldn't see it as a clear follow-up to Get Silly.
This how we get down, though, bro.
Yeah.
We always took chances. Like, if you remember, our first single on TBT, which was right after Get Low, was Nagging. I don't know if you even remember that song by Ying. Wah, wah, wah,
Oh,
wah,
yeah.
wah. We had never put a record out like that. Think about it.
Yeah. But then you also had the benefit of Whistle While You Twerk, which also they kind of sound in the same space.
But what I'm saying is this: every record that we had did up until that point was a twerk, girl dance shake record. That was a man anthem.
Yeah,
that was a nagging, like a girl getting on your. That was a real song,
right?
And I can tell you about 3 records that we put out on Ying Yang that sustained them beyond one-hit wonders that created a career for them. Nagging was one. These records didn't perform as big as the singles that you remember,
right?
But it expanded our fan base to the male audience. Nagging was one. What's Happening with Trick Daddy, and what's another? Smoke by Myself, Drink by Myself.
Yeah,
those records that we put out in between those dance records silently solidified a real fan base for us. And, so people don't remember those moves that we made. They were risky moves to make. And you wake up in the middle of the night like, damn, is this the right call, man? I'm going to tell you another thing. Trick Daddy had stopped cussing. Trick was going through some shit I'll never forget.
Was this when he started to get sick?
Something was going on with him.
Right.
But Ying Yang was his wife's favorite group in the world. So when we sent him what's happening with the open verse, you hear that verse. That's one of my favorite Trick Daddy verses out of all his shit. That's that pussy ass nigga like run with me. I got my big gun with me. Like he returned to the old Trick Daddy. That's how exciting. He came down for the video, and it just Roy Jones got in that video. So it was the right call to make. But it wasn't an easy call to make. So fast forward back to Wobble. Music, man. Right. We do music. We like gimmicks just so happen to be a part of the type of music that we do.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it always get back to the music, which is why I can't relate to a lot of this shit
that's happening now.
I like Cardi B, not because of all the antics. That girl got some good ass music, man.
I was having this conversation earlier about that album is a solid album. Yeah. Can't nobody argue about it.
Every time that little commercial they playing her came through dripping. Yeah. That shit be rocking, man.
I was like, they were very smart about that album, and I wouldn't be surprised if she walks away with a couple of awards under her belt this season.
That to me, I ain't gonna say by far, but
it was
she was by far the most impactful rap artist of the past 365 days.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know who you put in front of her other than Drake. Like, if you want to keep it real, because Drake gonna always have his shit. Like, but outside of those two, ain't nobody else even in the conversation to me.
Yeah, and no, I completely agree. I think as far as popular rap or hip hop albums that came out in the last year, that one was the most cohesive, consistent album.
I agree.
And they played it very well.
Yeah.
So she had singles everywhere.
Yeah.
And kind of like you said, how when Lil Jon would package his album like a mixtape, they went in and was like, okay, we want the Latin record, we want the hood junk, we want this, we want the record for the girls.
They got the music right, man. Yeah. They got the music right. Now, I'm not gonna call out no names, but I try to when there's a lot of excitement behind a name, I go and try to listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
I was so disappointed various times this year. And because, it's funny, the kids run up like, what's up, Unc? What's up? I'm Unc now. Like, what's up, Unc? Like, I'm the back in the day nigga now.
Right.
And when I listen to the music, I have to tell them, like, I know what music is. Right. You can try to put all this shit and disguise the lack of creativity and artistry in your shit. But when all the smoke clears, you left with your music.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's what you're trying to do, I don't get it. But if we talking about music, an artist like Cardi B is my prime example. Because I knew her before she started putting out records as the funny ass strip girl.
Right.
Strip club girl. Because other chicks that I was following was passing her videos around.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was funny as shit. So for her to get the music right, with that internet shit going on,
right?
I can get that, but don't just have the internet shit, and then when your music come out,
it don't match up.
You ain't got nothing to offer.
Yeah. Is there, looking back at the TVT era, the ColliPark era, once you stepped off and had your own label, is there a song that you look back now and you're like, I can't believe it popped the way it did?
Probably the Whisper song.
The Whisper song. So you weren't expecting that to do what it did?
No, we would have never put that out. I'd be lying if I sat here and told you I would have put that out as a single. That was just some cool, funny shit we were doing in the studio.
But that's probably why it did what it did, because it was
a total creativity space. Because if we were thinking about putting this out, we wouldn't have did it like that.
Right.
Think about that. That was some real underground, it's just us in the studio fucking around, type shit that somebody liked enough to steal and give it to a DJ. And, I knew when that song got leaked because I fell out with the dude who did it. We fell out forever behind that.
Oh, wow.
But I knew when it happened, a blessing was going to come out of it. I didn't know it was going to be the song popping the way it did, or was it me getting this dude out of my life that should have been gone. That was the last straw. So, but I knew some kind of flower was gonna grow, and that record, it leapfrogged my career as a producer. It reinvented me.
Mm-hmm.
It reinvented. It was like a start over everything, because that was really, honestly, and that was the beginning of the end for me and Ying Yang. You know, because we were growing apart at that time. So if you take that song away from us, we might not have got through another album. That was the last hoorah for us. Oh, wow. Now, we did an album after that, but we were so far not.
And at that point, they was starting to reach out, and because they were doing stuff with like Wyclef and stuff, right? At that point.
And I was gone. I already had my deal. I hadn't announced it, but I already had my deal at Interscope. You know, I was working with 2 checks then. You know what I mean? So, but they didn't know.
Right.
And that's when we, if it wasn't for Wyclef, we definitely wouldn't have got through that last album we did, which was a piece of shit. I can't listen to that album to this day.
Yeah. Is there?
I like "Dangerous" though, the first song.
But that's it. Oh, yeah. Is there a song that got cut from an album that you were like, I wish
on the Wyclef album we sampled "Don't Stop Believing."
Oh, I know it's not the Eagles.
Is it Journey?
Journey, yes.
We called Steve Gottlieb on at TVT, Wyclef's people, everybody called trying to. This song was fucking incredible. It was called "Ain't No Sunshine," and Wyclef was singing on the hook, and Ying Yang. It was a life song. This could have been a Wyclef song. This could have been a Fuji song.
And just hearing, thinking of like what would have been sampled from "Don't Stop Believing," like that.
No.
So that was
Wyclef
supposed to be
like, "Ain't no sunshine in L.A." I can still remember, like.
So it was supposed to be a stadium song, like that's I can hear that. Okay,
it was huge. This record would have been. Now that record would have saved everything, but because that record didn't make the album,
it changed the game.
The album was shit.
You know, one of my favorite songs from you that I think ended up being a bonus track was the song you did for Sierra. "Love You Better."
I can't find that song.
Look, you want it? I got it. I got a copy of it if you want it.
Yeah, you need to email that to me. I need to put that on my mix for Ryan.
Yeah, that because it came up randomly in shuffle maybe a week or two ago.
Okay.
And I always thought the production on that was dope, and I was like, it didn't sound like anything you had done,
right?
But it fit in with her album at the time. I always wondered why it didn't make.
I don't know, man. Yeah. Like that was a weird session. And that was either right after we did the Tiffany Evans Promise Ring record. And Sierra was so with what she wanted. I don't know. That was a weird session.
Yeah.
I just remember that being just like a weird session.
A dope song came from it, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is there anybody now, I know we talked about Cardi, but is there anybody production-wise who excites you today? Like who's doing
Metro.
Like Metro?
I really like Metro. Out of all these cats, because it seems like to me, anybody can do trap music. Anybody. I can go spend $100 after I leave here and buy some packs, some sound packs and shit, and just throw them in, and you would think I've been doing trap my whole life. Like for real. That's but Metro. I can hear an artist in there when I hear his stuff. Mm-hmm. I can hear a real dude. Like he might, I don't know him. I don't know nothing about him. Like he might have took band or something or played in the church or something about him is musical. And he's able to put that into that dark because the vibe he got is so dark.
Right, it's very moody.
Bright at the same time. So it's not easy to do what he does. And he out of all the new producers, he probably that dude.
Yeah. Me. So, what's going on with you now? I know you're back to your DJ roots right now, right?
Right.
So what's music like for you? What's your space in music right now?
You know what? I had kind of turned my back on urban music because it sucked about 4 years ago. Like it was so bad, man.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this sucked. And at the time, when Diplo was coming up, with the Express Yourself, that's the resurgence of twerk and Miley Cyrus and all that. So they took the twerk.
Right, or when people discovered twerk.
Right. So the resurgence of it through that, really what made me get back into DJing. But twerk wasn't the twerk that we know. It was the twerk that Diplo done took and put all this other shit, and they done came up with a whole new subgenre of our shit via twerk and trap.
Right.
They just took it. The white boys took it. Like trap is some EDM shit now.
Right, yeah.
Twerk is some EDM shit now. And I got back into DJing on that end of it. My first set was opening up for DJ Snake. I never forget.
Oh, wow.
I was scared as shit. Yeah, because
you didn't know how that audience would respond.
I hadn't DJed in 20 years.
Oh, and that too, yeah.
Yeah, literally. And that wasn't DJing back when we was like 10,000 people standing up against a fence looking at you.
Right.
Like, who does that shit? Well, that's how I was looking at it back then.
Right. And the response to DJs is different now.
Right. They're artists now.
Right.
So I had to really reprogram. I had to learn. It was like learning how to walk after a stroke. From production, because I stopped producing. I had to learn how to work Ableton and all. First, I had to sift through all the technology and software. I never DJ'd on CDJs or used the software to DJ.
Like Serato.
Serato. I still don't use Serato. I use Rekordbox. But so I had to learn all of this stuff. And how I got back into production was doing the remixes, because that's what the other dudes was doing with EDM.
Mm-hmm.
They would remix and play their own shit in their sets and stuff.
Right.
So it got me into doing that. So I was really having fun with it, and they party. Now that's one thing I give them over there. The aspect of having a good time and having a party. It reminded me of how it used to be in hip hop.
Oh, okay.
And so then when I went to nothing but EDM clubs literally for a year.
Here in the States, or were you? Was
in Atlanta.
Oh, in Atlanta.
Well, along with where I would go.
Okay.
Just studying. So the same clubs that we were going to on the off nights were EDM clubs on their real nights.
Mm-hmm.
Totally separate set of rules. Literally.
Yeah.
And it kind of pissed me off, to be honest with you. But I appreciated the good time that the actual people were having.
Right.
And so I stopped messing with urban music, for a while. And because wasn't no urban records being done for me to even remix urban records.
And remixes just don't happen in black music anymore.
So I started doing urban records. Yeah. So like probably my biggest one this year that people don't even know is me. My Nice for What?
Yeah.
Drake remix. Everybody plays it. But you just think the record jamming now.
Right.
You just in the club, you just think the DJ jamming. Like this shit jamming tonight. You know what I'm saying? But I started doing like a couple of like the Rihanna Work record. Like every once in a while a black record will come out. And so I had a couple of labels call and do official ones.
Mm-hmm. But
they still don't realize how important that really is. They don't realize it's still some shit in the streets,
right? That
still have an impact.
Yeah, look, we could have a whole nother episode on the importance of a remix, and the dying art of a remix. But I'm not gonna hold you up because we could talk for hours on end. But before we go, well, first, thank you, brother, for chopping it up, breaking down some of the important moments in Atlanta culture and black music, and laying out your impact on a lot of the processes for how we discover artists today, and just like I said, your contribution to the culture. But before we go, tell the people where they can find you on the internet.
They can find me on Twitter at Real ColliPark. That's RealColliPark. On IG, Real Mr. ColliPark, and on Facebook, DJ Mr. ColliPark.
Right, and your site where they can.
Oh, the website where now this is for DJs. Now, if you're not a DJ, don't go and get this music. It's MrColliParkLet'sGo.com.
Okay.
That's my tag. Shout out DJ Cool, man, because he did my tag. I'm a huge fan of DJ Cool. Mr. ColliPark, let's go. Like he hooked me up, man. Okay. So yeah.
Cool stuff. Appreciate you coming through. Of course, I appreciate you guys for listening. You can find the podcast on Instagram and Twitter at ungentrifiedpod.com. You can also find me, your host, on those same platforms at Kent W. Johnson. You can find this episode and all other episodes on your preferred listening platform for podcasts and on the website, ungentrifiedpodcast.com. If you haven't already done so, do me a favor and leave a review. It helps out a lot. Do me another favor if you've already done that and tell a friend about the show. That also helps me out a lot. Brother, thank you so much for coming through. Anytime I can chop it up about music, I'm hyped. So to get an inside track on the things that happen during, some of my favorite times in music is always a blessing. So I appreciate you for that.
No problem.
All right, cool. And I'll check you guys next time. Peace.